What's up, my fellow lionesses and lions? Welcome to the Project Lioness podcast, where we are here to disrupt the mainstream narrative when it comes to health, holism, and human consciousness. We are here to share bold truths about health and life from a female perspective. This episode is brought to you by our team, Inspire Co., where we stand for your health being inspired by choice rather than being inhibited by chance. Thank you for being here and joining in on these raw, real, and powerful conversations. We hope our show brings you inspiration and empowerment to overcome challenges, reclaim your life, and ultimately pursue your mission with power, purpose, and play. Now, let's get into the episode. All right, everyone. Welcome back to the Project Lioness podcast. This is your host, Dr. Mel, and today I am joined by an amazing woman, Dr. Marina from Greece, tuning in all the way from Greece. And she is a mom, she is an entrepreneur, she is a chiropractor, and she's also a graduate of the Project Lioness Cohort. And I'm super excited today. She's going to share her journey of what it's like being a mom, dealing with some motherhood evolution, what that's like to run a business and raise a son consciously. But before we dive in, y'all, let me read her bio, what she's all about. So Marina is a chiropractor, mother, wife, and an entrepreneur who supports women through all transitions of motherhood. Through her work and journey, she speaks about identity shifts, familial healing, nervous system support, and the quiet loneliness many women experience, and how connection and self-trust can transform that experience. And her sister Lula run an amazing practice in Greece, and we are super excited to have Marina on the show. So welcome, my friend. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So I think you probably know if you are a listener of the podcast, but a lot of people find this work and find this podcast because they are moms, they are women, they maybe are running a business or raising kids. And I think sometimes they can lose themselves, whether it's with their kids, with the business. So I'm curious, Marina and I met y'all on Instagram and connected via her sister a while back. And she's got an amazing journey. And I'm just curious, Marina, before you and I met and started to do some work together, tell us more about like your origin story and your journey of like, what was life like working through some of that like silent loneliness that you talk about, or I know you've struggled with some things with your kiddo. So start us from the beginning. Tell us how you got here.
So, 3 years ago, I became a mom. And as cliche as it sounds, it changed like everything. I don't think anything prepares you, no matter how much you read, no matter how much you like look into it, no matter like even if your like sister went through it, nothing prepares you for what like is gonna happen to you, right? And I was quite anxious before I became like a mom. Because something very like traumatic happened to my sister after her giving birth. So I was like slightly more worried of what's going to come like next. So I was like, okay, I'm going to read more. I'm going to like dive into this more to be as prepared as I can. But then, like I said, I became a mom, and yes, the birth itself was like traumatic. But nothing prepared me for what happened like next. So in terms of not only learning how to take care of like a human, but I felt like, who am I like now? Before I decided, okay, I'm going to stay like 3 months with my son, and then I'm going to return back to like work because I love my work and I love like being at the clinic, and it didn't feel like rushed, at the time. I was like, good, I'm going to have like a few months and like go back.
I have this plan. It's all going to work out.
Yeah. And then after, when he was like 3.5 months old, I was like, great, it's after Christmas. I'm going to start the year being back at the clinic. And then I remember like being so happy seeing like everyone. And at the same time, I was like, I'm here And as soon as my shift finished, I wanted to go back like crazy. I wanted to go back home. And then my son was like diagnosed with some issues with his like kidney before he was even born. So then we were monitoring after he was born. And then they said, like, look, some things are going to show up as he gets like older. So you have to check it after when he's like 4 months old. And then we started like a journey, like weekly appointments, going to Athens. And then every doctor was saying, like, okay, you need to check this and you need to check that. And then I was at the clinic. I was like, oh, I'm ready. And I started canceling like appointment. I started like changing clients, which it wasn't like nice. It wasn't something that I enjoyed. And it didn't feel like I was being like present for them. So again, I was there, but I was not like actually there. And then like the months went by, and then I was at the clinic, but I wasn't actually like focusing on like growing my practice. And I was like, okay, let's just gonna take a step back, and then focus on like dealing with these health issues and these challenges, and then, give it some time and take it like slowly after. So after like the summer went by, he had like a surgery. Everything was like fine, and then we were in the path that we were just monitoring every like few months. So I was not as it didn't require as much like attention, let's say. And then a year went by, and then I think it was beginning last year that we started like chatting, because I felt, again, one more time, I was like, okay, now I can do this. Now I'm ready to go back to work and let's focus on growing it like again. But at the same time, I was feeling like I was somewhere in between. Almost felt like I had to choose, because I was like, well, if you're at home, then you're not growing this part. But then if you're there, then you're missing out stuff at home. So I was feeling like kind of in between. And I know, because I've talked to a lot of moms as well, and a lot of them like feel after they don't want to go back to work, which is absolutely like fine. But I didn't have the feeling. I wanted to be there. But I was feeling very like alone in that moment.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Is there anything else you want to add? Otherwise, you're definitely hitting on some really important points that I want to highlight as far as your pre-journey. Yeah, I think, Marina, thank you for being vulnerable. And I'm sure a lot of moms on this are totally going to resonate. And I know I've worked with a lot of moms, and they feel that tug of war, right? Where there's such an identity shift that happens when you birth a human. It's like, okay, now what? And I'm imagining when wherever you gave birth, they weren't like, okay, here's a manual of like how you do this thing called life. And I joke about that in my programs, but it's true. Like, you weren't given this manual of, okay, now you have a different identity. Like, you're still who you are. You're still a business owner. You're still a chiropractor, but there's this new identity that comes in. And a lot of women struggle. Like, how do you link them? How do you have them coexist versus feeling like you're living in two different worlds? And I'm curious, did you notice anything else when you were going through that journey? Were there other, I don't want to say symptoms, but were there other challenges that you felt like started to build up that really catalyzed you to be like, okay, I've got to really figure out like who I am?
Well, it's like symptoms, like you said, but it was more of like an inner critic, and like the pressure that we put on ourselves. And let me tell you, when you're a mom, that pressure goes on like
10x.
like the highest like level.
Yes. The self-judgment that we talk about in Project Lioness, right? Like, the judgment of ourselves and our own values is literally like the greatest form of chaos. So, but yes, like, continue. Totally that.
Yeah, it was the voices, like the critic. And like you mentioned now with the values, like, yes, maybe you have an idea of what your values are, but it changes.
Yeah.
And if you don't see that change, or if it doesn't, if you don't like, if you don't see it and if you don't accept it, then your critic is still gonna be there, and you're gonna keep judging yourself, and you're gonna keep putting immense pressure on yourself.
And you know, as a doctor, and we know as doctors, the more that you create the psychological pressure, it totally puts your physiology down the road, maybe not right away, but it's going to put your physiology into that stress state, into that pressured state, right? And I don't think a lot of people recognize that it can be that psychosomatic connection. And then people, you get this as a chiropractor, we look at prevention and what's the source, what's the cause. And people think that these things like show up overnight, when in reality it could start as a thought, and then that thought becomes a loop, and that loop becomes a program, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, this inner critic is so loud. And I want to highlight what you're saying for the listeners, because this is really important to invite you all to consider. Like, that inner critic isn't bad, but it's a mental feedback loop and a mental symptom to pay attention to, of like, okay, wait a second, why do I keep having these same thoughts about myself? And perhaps it's illuminating something that's out of alignment with who I actually am, right? Maybe trying to live into the values of other people, or trying so hard to become something else, versus just truly love who you are and love your life in all the different domains and identities that you step into. So, really, really wise words that you're sharing in this moment. So then you're having this inner critic, and you and I start connecting via your sister, and you enter this world of, you courageously enter the world of Project Lioness. And at the time of this recording, y'all, this is 2026. Marina is a graduate of one of the 2025 programs. And so as you entered that world, what was that like for you from kind of beginning and through it? And what were some of the things you noticed as you went through that journey with your cohort?
Oof, where do I start?
You have plenty of time to share. We'll do a part two.
um, yeah, so many like things, and it was actually, it can be like bigger things, but they were also small things that I started noticing like on my day to day. So I want to say thank you for having this cohort, and for being such a great teacher. And thank you for the calls. I don't think I'll ever forget our first one-to-one call when we did our first clearing.
Yep. I remember it too. I often remember people's first.
I think that was like a big breakthrough and pivotal moment throughout the journey. So for me, one of the like big wins, I guess, breakthroughs, is realizing and accepting that I love being a mom, and family is my highest value, which was something that I was scared to say at the beginning, because I thought that that would leave my business behind. But no, it doesn't mean that.
What? Does it?
And it's okay to say it, and it's okay to have more than one like passions as well. So for me, that was like a big realization, to like admit it, I guess, to myself. The other big thing is, and I love when you talk about it as well, it's about the balance. So there is always a balance, but not the way that people think that, oh, okay, so 50% of my time and focus is going to go to business, and 50% of my time and focus is going to go to my family. No, it's nothing like that. Sometimes it's going to be 80% in one thing, and sometimes it's going to be 80% on the other thing. And sometimes it's going to be, I don't know, like 65 and a little bit more on the other. There's always going to be balance in all areas of our lives, although it might seem that one of them is lacking. So, and it is a concept that was still like, I still have to like remind myself, and we're still working. And I guess let's just mention here that once you open that door, start working with yourself. It's not those guys. It's not like you graduated and then you're like, oh,
Life is
I'm
good.
really, I'm healed.
Right. Yeah.
So that was like another big thing for me as well.
That's huge. How have you seen that show up in, let's say your relationship with your partner, with your son, or even your patients? Because, like I said, I know there's a lot of female entrepreneurs on here who have kids, and I know it's totally, you're right, Marina. And thank you for sharing your breakthroughs. And yes, for those of you who hear balance, it's not what you think. It's so much. It's so much deeper and so much more meta that I teach in the cohort to really help you come back to that love for yourself. And I think, a big thing I hear from graduates is like sometimes it's those day-to-day moments, right? Where I know you shared a lot like this working through anger, right? Working through a lot of moms come in, they have a lot of mom rage or anger because of that big identity shift. And there's just like little moments that we live life differently. It's like, oh wow, I totally responded differently. And I know it's not always like a big like, "Oh, I made $1,000,000," but it's like, no, I was able to be more present with my kid. I was able to be more balanced with a challenging client. So I'm curious, what have you noticed in kind of those day-to-day interactions in those meaningful areas as a result of what you just shared?
And thank you for mentioning the anger, because that would be my next thing.
Yeah, I could feel it. I feel like we were going into that.
um, yeah, it anger is an emotion that not often like we speak about, and I don't know if it's like our generation that no one like ever talked to us about that emotion. And um, I'm sure a lot of people will feel like similar to what I'm gonna like say, but yeah, like growing up, like anger was not like a loud emotion. And thinking back now, actually, times when you're like sad is actually like anger disguised.
Oh,
And then learning to acknowledge that emotion and be present with that, as with any emotion, that helps you not only, like you said, love yourself more, but also be more present and change now the narrative for your kids as well. Because I think that's the most important work that we do
yeah.
for our kids, is to show them that all emotions are allowed, and show them how they can not not learn how to avoid them, but learn how to like be with them.
Mm.
So yes, I get angry. Yes, I yelled at my son. I'm not like gonna lie about it. But then,
Imagine that.
but then I've apologized. And then it was actually quite recently that I told him, like, I'm sorry that I haven't learned how to deal with that. Like, no one has ever like taught me that. And I'm learning with you. And I said, I'm sorry. Like, we're learning here, like together. And I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it is. And thank you for getting vulnerable and speaking to that. You were not alone in that. That was something growing up, didn't know how to channel my anger either. And it often went into sports. But like you said, what's underneath the surface is often sadness and maybe some grief of maybe an old identity or something that we're choosing to move forward from. And I know I've heard not only from you many times in the cohort, but other moms, it can be truly priceless when you see those new patterns in the generations starting to come online. And it is such a gift, I think, when kids can experience repair, is what I'm hearing in your share of how do you repair from these moments of intensity? How do you repair and reconcile moments that were of the human nature, right? And I think when you can have that learning through contrast, as I call it, that's actually how kids learn. They don't learn through perfection or pressure or having it all be one way. They learn through, oh, I saw mom do this, or I saw mom and dad do this, and that was a little intense. And they are hugging again, or like we're hugging again. Like, interesting. I don't have to feel afraid of this intensity. And that is how we heal the planet, y'all. Like, it's not through acting like we don't have emotions, but rather what I teach in the program, going from emotional turbulence to emotional coherence. We're not emotionless, but how do we navigate those waves when we feel sad, when we feel anger, when we feel depressed, when we feel joy, and really learning to dance in the waves of life. So thank you for prompting that, Marina. Is there anything else you want to add on that, on top of that?
Yes, another, like you said, big win and day to day is, and it's all linked to what we've like already discussed, is that I was getting more trigger proof, like you say.
Yeah.
And especially when you have to deal with like close family members, right? Usually they're the biggest source of our like triggers.
Totally.
And like, I think it was maybe like a few months in, and then my mom helps me a lot, and I'm so grateful. And she helps me a lot with like my son and at the house. But like I said, sometimes they can be stuff that they can be quite triggering. And they were like a few months in, and I think she said something, and I was like, okay, like, and then I was like, it actually didn't bother me. And then like obviously like things get like happening, and I was like, it doesn't bother me. And I realized is once you see that everything that the other person like says or how they act is from their standpoint of like they have their own set of values, right? And you said that very clearly as well. Like they always gonna like say based on their um, values. So I think once you're in the moment, realize that it's not like a personal attack to you, and it's not about you, but it's about how they view things. Then that makes you trigger proof.
Yeah.
And also you being so sure of what your values are. And I think that's like one of the big things.
Yeah, that's beautiful. It's very well said. And it's like you said, it happens in those little moments, right? Like, oh, interesting. Normally, in the past, I would have responded this way, and my body had a totally different mechanism of response. And I think that's something I want to highlight for the listeners that Marina is speaking to is it is those little things that you don't realize, and we as chiropractors know this, but those little moments of triggering create, cortisol, sympathetic tone, and it in a moment, yes, maybe you feel that rush and you have that reaction, and then it kind of goes away, but it doesn't actually go away. It builds in your system, and then the next time, and then the next time, and we don't realize like all these little moments and pebbles like add up to the boulder where you're like, okay, there's something going on here, and how do we turn these triggers into opportunities of learning and self-reflection, which that awareness piece that you're speaking to is the greatest form of mastery, is self-awareness. It's not that you're never going to be triggered again, but as Marina is speaking to, I like to teach people how to become unstoppable and trigger proof in any situation, whether it's your family or your clients, or for those of you who are doctors, your patients. Like, imagine being able to go through your day and just what you're speaking to, Marina, is essentially like be who you are and not try to put yourself in this box and just live your damn life, right? Like just be authentically you, because that's going to give people permission around you to do the same versus walking on eggshells or trying to be someone that you're not. It's so liberating in your body and your mind and your soul. So I really appreciate you bringing up the specific moments, and something I want to reflect back to you that I've noticed in you is you definitely jumped in very courageously. And something that I appreciate you in the program is, I loved seeing you bring up the things that I think a lot of people would maybe skirt over, and you didn't have fear in being able to go into it. Like maybe it felt scary for you, but any of our one-to-ones or any of our group calls where we did those clearings, you were just like, you know what? I'm realizing like I have this thing, and like how do I get past it? Right? Like you were just so courageous to bring those things up. And often find like those are the types of people who are really attracted to this program. But I felt like you were such a leader in that for other people and for other moms. And being willing to be vulnerable in the container absolutely helps everyone else through the osmosis effect heal. So I wanted to, acknowledge you in that and share that with you. Like, as much as I know I'm giving to you all, there's so much that I get to receive seeing you all grow. You're like my little students graduating and now you're PhD, and like I'm the mom that's like sending you off to college or whatever. It's just like not I'm so proud of you from the place of how we talk about pride, but like I see you, I acknowledge you, and I see you in that growth, and I just want to reflect that back to you.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. So if someone were to be curious about Project Lioness for themselves as we come up on another cohort phase, is there anything that you would share with them? If they're curious, if maybe they're hesitating, what wisdom would you share with them, if they're, right on that edge of considering investing in this for themselves?
Couple of things. I would say this is this cohort is, as far as I know, is the only cohort that whatever we've talked about like here and all the mental stuff and everything that we like mentioned and the theory, let's say, behind all of it, it's not just theory. It addresses the body as well. And I think that's the most important part, because one cannot follow without the other. And if you don't work through your body, then whatever's going on up here, it's not gonna like keep working, and vice versa, I guess. Um, so I would say don't hesitate. But also, the thing I'd like to say is don't do it to get like a specific outcome. And I know that might sound maybe weird to say it like this, but don't do it to be like, okay, I'm gonna double my business this year. This is not the program to do it. It might happen, and that might be great for you, but that's not what you're like looking for.
That's actually really wise. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. It's so true. I think we go into things with an expectation, and we often get the opposite, versus when you can just step into curiosity and understanding yourself more, it opens up so much more than just making more money, right? And I teach this, but there's so many different forms of wealth, and it all comes back to your highest values. So I really appreciate you speaking to that, because that's super wise as a graduate. Because we can get really attached to outcomes in the 3D world, and we actually miss out on the magic that is actually meant for us. And sometimes we don't even know until we step into it, right? And that reclamation of the self, to me, because I do this work along with y'all, the reclamation of the self outweighs any sort of three-dimensional thing that this work has given to me. So thank you, Marina, for sharing that. I super appreciate that. You as a graduate embarking your wisdom on other people. Is there anything else? Any final closing thoughts of wisdom or things that you want to share that's coming through in this moment?
Well, something to just add in what we just said, because like for me, like I didn't expect that through, as I was going through Project Lioness, I started building the community that I've always had in mind of building around moms and starting a podcast about like motherhood. And yes, the idea was there, but this gave me the, I want to say like the space, and it allowed me to do it.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, I wouldn't have thought about it like before I started. So maybe it's not all directly to like what you think you do as like work. That's just like,
Yeah. That's good. That's really good. It's fun to hear on the other side, like seeing people go through it. It's fun to hear y'all's revelations, because from someone who created it with the intention of you actually uncovering something way deeper that's so connected to who you are in your zone of genius, it's fun to see it like happen. It's like, oh yeah, that was my intention of the whole design of the program, going, from body to how we take action to our voice to our vision. Like that's the whole intention. So it's really, really fun to hear that actually be birthed through for you in your own unique style, because everyone, I think, finds that treasure chest, or I call it the golden thread exercise moment, in their own timing, in their own unique creative way. But we all have a gift inside of us that we are meant to bring forth, and I think some people enter this container and they have no idea what that is, and then we clear a lot of this stuff and you realize, oh my gosh, this is something I wanted to do this whole time, and now I actually feel like I have the courage to do it. So for those of you who don't know, Dr. Marina and her sister, Dr. Lula, you probably know her from previous episodes, run an amazing clinic in Greece, and they are up to some really, really cool things in serving women, including their own podcast. What is the name of your podcast?
Mom Brain Unfiltered.
Yes. Doesn't that sound great? Mom Brain Unfiltered, y'all. That sounds fantastic. So if you're a mom and you have a brain and you want to have some unfiltered conversations, go check Dr. Marina out. I will make sure that her information is in the show notes, and her everything that she's up to with her and her sister, and really creating a strong impact, not only in Greece, but globally. So as we wrap this up, my friend, anything else you want to share?
No, I mean, if you're thinking about the cohort, just like do it.
Wise words. Just do it, y'all. Get out of your head and into your body.
You'll find. I know you say you're remembering like who you are. I'll add like you'll find your voice.
Mm-hmm.
You'll find your voice and you will use it like very wisely.
No going back, right? There's no going back. Once the lioness is out, she's got to roar. Oh, I love it. Well, thank you, my friend, so much for coming on here. It's such a gift to see you, to hear your journey, and to hear the continued sustainability. That's one thing that I really wanted to create with this program, is even after people graduate, having that sustainability in their life is really, really important, because I'm not about creating a high in this program. I'm about creating equilibrium so that it lasts, so that it's sustainable and you keep living into your values. So super appreciate you. For those of you who are considering the next cohort, I will put the link in the show notes along with Marina's information. She is, well, I don't want to speak for her, but she may or may not, if you reach out to her, maybe she'll answer a couple questions. I know sometimes our graduates are, okay, she's nodding her head. Sometimes our graduates are happy to share their experience, because it's one thing for y'all to hear it from me because I'm the creator of the program, and I think it's hot shit. But Marina is a student. She is a graduate. She did invest in herself, her time, her energy, her money, her resources. And I think it's really important that you connect with graduates, because I think you can relate to them more. And they're an open book, right? They're going to tell you the good, the bad, the ugly, and everything in between. So thank you, Marina, for doing that. And until next time, my friends, we will see you on the Project Lioness podcast. Thank you for tuning in, and wishing you an amazing day. Peace, love.
keep inspiring.
Thank you for joining the Project Lioness podcast. Did you find value in today's episode? Help us impact the lives of others by sharing this podcast with someone you know who would resonate and benefit from the Project Lioness message. Excited to hear more? We invite you to subscribe on whatever platform you're tuning in on. And we'd be so grateful for you to leave us a review about what you enjoy most, as well as what you'd like to hear more of. Thank you so much for all of your support. Sincerely yours in power, purpose, and play. Dr. Mel with the Project Lioness podcast. Keep rising, keep roaring, and keep inspiring.